Listen, I have been a court scribe for the Caldreth Empire for 73 cycles now, and I thought I had seen everything. Political backstabbing? Check. Theatrical accusations? Double check. Species trying to claim diplomatic immunity while covered in contraband? Triple check with a side of paperwork that could fill a cargo hold. But nothing, and I mean absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the day they dragged Commander Raina Vex into the Grand Tribunal. The human shuffled in wearing magnetic restraints that hummed with enough power to hold down a battle mech. Huh? Her wrists were locked in plasma cuffs that glowed an angry orange, the kind usually reserved for convicted mass murderers or politicians caught accepting bribes. Which, let's be honest, is basically the same thing in most systems. The guards, 4 of them, all Thrixian warriors standing at least 8 feet tall with exoskeletons that could shrug off small arms fire, looked more nervous than she did. That should have been my first clue. The human wore what remained of her military uniform. It had been black once, maybe navy blue, but now it was torn, scorched, and stained with substances I did not want to identify. One sleeve was completely missing. Her dark hair was matted against her skull, and a nasty cut ran across her left cheekbone, still crusty with dried blood. She looked like she had been dragged backward through a plasma conduit, and yet her eyes, sharp, calculating, utterly unconcerned. She scanned the chamber with the casual interest of someone browsing a market stall, not someone facing execution for crimes against the Empire. The gallery was packed, standing room only, with representatives from 47 member species all crammed in to watch the spectacle. The air recyclers were working overtime, struggling against the mixed atmospheres and the smell of anticipation that transcended species barriers. High Judge Kaelor sat at the center of the judicial bench, his 4 arms folded in a display of supreme authority. His crystalline carapace caught the light from overhead, scattering rainbow patterns across the walls. On either side sat the lesser judges, 12 in total, representing the most powerful factions in the Empire. This was not just a trial. This was theater. A message to every species that thought they could defy Kaelor's authority. Kaelor's voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by neural resonators. Commander Raina Vex of the Terran Defense Corps, you stand accused of 17 counts of violating the Caldreth Peace Accords, 42 counts of unauthorized military action, 308 counts of murder, and 1 count of gross disrespect to imperial authority. That last one always got tacked on, when they really wanted to make an example of someone. The human tilted her head, like she was considering the menu at a restaurant. Is that all? The gallery erupted. Half were gasping in shock, the other half were chittering or clicking or however their species expressed outrage. I saw a Vexorian ambassador actually clutch their breathing apparatus in disbelief. You could practically taste the scandal in the air, which on reflection might have been coming from the Metherian section. But the point stands. Kaelor's carapace shifted to a darker shade, a sign of irritation. You dare show insolence before this court? I dare show up, Raina said flatly. That's already more courtesy than you lot deserve. Oh, this was going to be good. I activated my secondary recording implant just to make sure I captured every moment. This story was going to make me famous in scribe circles for decades. The prosecutor, a Yalvian named Merchant Trell, who had never lost a case in 40 years, slithered forward to the presentation platform. His 6 eyes gleamed with confidence. The Yalvians were known for their logical minds and their ability to construct arguments so airtight that defendants often confessed halfway through the opening statements just to make it stop. Honored judges, Trell began, his translator rendering his hissing speech into standard Galactic. The evidence against the accused is overwhelming. 6 months ago, Commander Vex was stationed aboard the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Promise as part of the human delegation to the Outer Reach negotiations. Her orders were clear. Observe. Advise. Do not engage. He paused for effect, one of his secondary arms activating a holo display. Images flickered to life above the platform. Burning ships, hull destroyed stations, bodies floating in the void. The Ceres pulling in the void. Instead, what did Commander Vex do? She commandeered a military strike craft, violated Imperial space, and launched a one-woman assault on a Caldreth military installation. Not just any installation. The Black Gate Station, home to our 7th Fleet. In the attack, 308 personnel were killed, 17 ships were damaged or destroyed. The station itself was rendered inoperable for 9 weeks. The gallery murmured. The Black Gate incident had been big news. The Empire had tried to suppress the details, claiming it was a terrorist attack by an unknown faction, but rumors had spread anyway. They always did. I had heard at least 20 different versions, each more wild than the last. But that is not even the worst of her crimes. Trell continued, warming to his subject. He was enjoying this. The worst crime is why she did it. When asked to explain her actions by Imperial investigators, do you know what she said? Trell manipulated the holo display, bringing up a video. It showed Raina in an interrogation cell, looking even worse than she did now if that was possible. The interrogator, a hulking Crothian with mandibles the size of my forearm, loomed over her. Why did you attack Blackgate Station? The interrogator growled. Raina looked directly into the camera. Because someone had to. The video cut off. Trell spread his arms wide. Because someone had to. No declaration of war. No attempt at diplomacy. Just pure human arrogance. She decided on her own authority to commit an act of war against the Empire. And now 308 families mourn their dead while this human shows not one shred of remorse. He turned to face Raina directly. Commander Vex, do you deny any of these charges? Nope. The single word hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Trell actually recoiled slightly. In all his years prosecuting cases, defendants never just admitted guilt. Never. There were always explanations, justifications, pleas for mercy. You admit to all charges? Trell sputtered. Sure do. Every single one. Attacked your station.
Killed your people.
Violated your precious accords. Raina shrugged, which made the chains rattle. Though to be fair, you missed a few. I also stole a shuttle from your docking bay. That is probably another charge. Grand theft spacefaring? Do you guys have that one? Kaelor slammed his primary fist on the bench. This is not a joke, human. You face execution. Oh, I know it is not a joke. Something changed in Raina's expression then. The casual indifference vanished, replaced by something cold and hard. Trust me, Judge. There is absolutely nothing funny about what happened. But if you want to talk about who deserves execution, well, we should probably start with the truth. The truth? Kaelor scoffed. The truth is you are a murderer who will face justice. Justice? Raina laughed, but there was no humor in it. It was the kind of laugh that made the guards grip their shock staffs tighter. You want to talk about justice? Fine. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what was really happening at Blackgate Station. Let's talk about what I found there. Pearl's confidence flickered, just for a second. But I caught it. My stylus paused over my data tablet. This was it. The turn. Every good trial had one. That moment when the narrative shifted. Enlighten us, Kaelor said acidly. Tell us your fantasy. Raina looked around the gallery, making eye contact with various ambassadors and delegates. When she spoke, her voice carried clearly through the chamber. 6 months ago, during the Outer Reach negotiations, I was serving as a military advisor to the human diplomatic team. Standard stuff. Boring meetings about trade routes and mineral rights. But then something weird happened. Ships started disappearing. Ships disappear in space all the time. Trell interjected. Pirates. Navigational errors. Mechanical failures. Right. Super common. Raina nodded mockingly. Except these were all civilian transports. And they were all from species not aligned with the Empire. Funny coincidence. That, Vescan freighters, Quillian passenger liners.
Even a few human colony ships.
All gone. No distress calls. No debris. Just gone. A ripple went through the gallery. The Vescan delegation was chittering among themselves frantically. The Quillians looked agitated, their feathers puffing up in distress. Raina continued, her voice taking on an edge. So I started digging, called in some favors. Some friends in intelligence pool data. And you know what we found? Every single one of those ships had filed flight plans that took them near Blackgate Station. Every single one. Circumstantial, Trell hissed. The Outer Reach is a busy sector. Many ships pass through that region. Oh, it gets better, Raina said. She was smiling now, but it was the smile of a predator. Because then I did something crazy. I actually went there, snuck into the station's data core, sliced into your records, and holy hell, what I found. She paused, letting the tension build. I realized I was holding my breath. So was half the gallery. You want to know what the Cauldreth Empire has been doing at Blackgate Station? You want to know what your 7th Fleet was really up to? They were running a processing facility, not for ore or fuel, for people. The chamber exploded. Voices rose in a cacophony of alien languages. Accusations flew. Denials shouted. Kaelor was slamming his fist repeatedly, trying to restore order. The guards activated containment fields around the gallery to prevent a riot. Through it all, Raina stood there, chains rattling slightly, watching the chaos with grim satisfaction. Lies, Trell shrieked. Desperate lies from a desperate criminal. Oh, I have proof, Raina said calmly. Downloaded it all before I blew your station to scrap. Passenger manifests, processing schedules, financial records showing sales to black market slave rings, even video footage of your soldiers loading captives onto unmarked transports. You were not just taking ships, you were taking people, thousands of them, selling them to the highest bidder. Kaelor's carapace had turned almost black. Guards, remove this lying filth from my courtroom. No. The single word came from the back of the gallery. All eyes turned to see Ambassador Tivin of the Veskin Collective, rising from their seat. The Veskin were not a military power, but they controlled significant trade routes and had considerable economic influence. Ambassador, you forget yourself, Kaelor warned. I forget nothing, High Judge. Tivin's voice was cold. 9 of our freighters have disappeared in the past year, 147 of our people, and you dismissed our concerns, called us paranoid, told us to improve our navigation systems. If this human has evidence, I demand to see it. A Quillian delegate stood up.
As do we.
12 passenger liners, 2,309 souls, gone. More delegates rose. Species that had been silent, that had accepted the Empire's explanations, suddenly finding their voices. The tide was turning, and I could see the judges starting to panic. This was not how the trial was supposed to go. This was supposed to be a slam-dunk conviction, a public display of imperial justice. Now it was turning into something else entirely. Raina met Kaelor's eyes. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to let me present my evidence, all of it, every damning bite, and then we are going to have a real conversation about who the actual criminals are in this chamber. Because spoiler alert, it is not me. But Kaelor stared at her for a long moment. I could see the calculations running behind his eyes. He could shut this down, have her executed immediately, bury the whole thing. But with the gallery in an uproar and multiple ambassadors demanding answers that would only fuel suspicions, he was trapped. Was trapped. Very well, he said finally. Present your evidence. This court will hear what you have to say, and then we will determine who is telling the truth. Raina smiled. Not the predatory smile from before. This was worse. This was the smile of someone who had just won the first round and knew exactly how the next ones would play out. Oh, Judge, she said softly, you are going to regret that. The holo projector flickered to life. And let me tell you, the next 40 minutes fundamentally changed galactic politics as we knew it. I am not being dramatic. Well, maybe a little. But I am a scribe. Drama is literally in the job description. Raina had somehow, despite being in maximum security detention for 6 months, managed to transmit a data packet to the human embassy with instructions to deliver it to the court if certain conditions were met. Apparently, one of those conditions was her actually making it to trial alive.
Smart.
Very human, when I thought about it. The first file that appeared showed grainy security footage from Blackgate Station. The timestamp read 8 months prior, a Veskin freighter docked at an auxiliary port, standard refueling stop. Nothing unusual, except 30 minutes after docking, Caldrith security forces boarded the vessel. Not customs, not immigration. Military personnel in full combat gear. Standard inspection, Trell said quickly, his forked tongue flicking nervously. All ships are subject to random security checks. Watch. Raina manipulated the display with a remote that the guards had, somewhat stupidly, not confiscated, probably because it looked like a standard court presentation device, which it was, sort of. Humans were sneaky like that. The video fast-forwarded. The Caldra soldiers emerged from the freighter herding 42 Veskin crew members in restraints. Not detainment cuffs. Slave collars. I recognized them from historical archives about the pre-Tod Empire Dark Ages when such barbarism was common. The kind that delivered shocks if the wearer moved wrong. The kind designed to break spirits. Ambassador Tivin made a sound that I cannot adequately describe with standard galactic characters. It was somewhere between a wail and a battle cry. Other Veskin in the gallery joined in, creating a chorus of anguish that made my translator implant temporarily malfunction. The video continued. The Veskin were loaded onto unmarked transport pods. The freighter was stripped of valuables, then deliberately sabotaged. Explosive charges placed in the engine core. When the ship exploded 30 minutes later, it looked exactly like a reactor malfunction. Exactly like hundreds of other accidents that had been reported over the past 2 years. Fabricated, Kaelor said, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. This footage could have been manufactured anywhere. Humans are known for their aptitude with digital manipulation. Oh, I thought you might say that. Raina smiled again. That terrible smile. So I brought receipts. Lots and lots of receipts. The display changed. Financial records scrolled past too fast for most species to read, but the human embassy had thoughtfully provided translation overlays in 47 languages, purchase orders for restraint equipment, invoices for medical supplies used in processing facilities, payment transfers to known slave cartels in the fringe worlds, and the routing numbers. They all traced back to imperial military accounts. But the real kicker, the thing that made 3 of the lesser judges actually stand up and try to leave before Kaelor ordered the chamber sealed, was the manifest. A comprehensive list of every ship taken, every person captured, and every sale made. 2 years of systematic kidnapping, processing, and trafficking. Over 15,000 individuals. 53 species, profits in the billions of credits. And at the top of the authorization chain, High Judge Kaelor himself. The chamber went absolutely silent. You could have heard a Quillian feather drop. Everyone was staring at Kaelor, whose crystalline carapace had turned a sickly gray color that I had never seen before. It might have been the visual equivalent of a human going pale, or it might have been rage. With Kaldrith it was hard to tell. This is treason, Kaelor stammered. Not denying it, I noted. Just upset about being caught. To fabricate such evidence against a high judge, this human will be executed immediately. Actually, no. A new voice joined the conversation. This one came from the gallery entrance, where a tall figure in diplomatic robes had just entered. The robes bore the seal of the Terran Confederacy, but underneath them I could see military armor. Serious military armor. The kind with shield generators. Ambassador Marcus Thorne. I recognized him from news feeds. Former Terran Defense Corps general turned diplomat, which was like making a shark your lifeguard. Technically qualified, but you had to question the decision-making process. Ambassador Thorne, you have no authority in this chamber, Kaelor said, recovering some of his composure. This is an imperial court. And Commander Vex is a Terran citizen, Thorne replied evenly. Which means I have every right to be here. But that is not why I came. I came to deliver a message. He produced a data cylinder from his robes. Hold. School. Unhackable. Hold. Whatever was on it had been physically transported here. This arrived via courier ship 2 hours ago, from the Veskin Collective, the Quillian Commonwealth, the Metherian Concordat,
and
17 other non-aligned species. Would you like to know what it says? No one answered. Thorne activated the cylinder anyway. The holographic document appeared, rotating slowly so everyone in the gallery could read it. I caught glimpses. Terms like economic sanctions, and suspension of trade agreements, and possible military intervention kept popping up. Turns out, Thorne continued conversationally, when you kidnap and sell 15,000 people, their governments tend to get upset. Who knew? They have been investigating independently for months. Commander Vex just beat them to the punch, and now they want answers. Real answers. Not show trials designed to bury the evidence with the witness. Kaelor looked around the chamber desperately. His fellow judges were avoiding eye contact. The guards were shifting uncomfortably. Several ambassadors were already on communication devices, no doubt reporting back to their homeworlds. This had gone from a simple execution to a potential interstellar incident in less than an hour. Raina cleared her throat. So here is my proposal. Since I am already here in chains, standing trial for destroying a slave trafficking operation that your government was running, how about we skip the part where you try to kill me and move straight to the part where you explain yourselves? We owe you no explanations. Human, Kaelor spat. But there was fear in his voice now. Real fear. He was watching his carefully constructed world collapse in real time. Actually, you do. Raina's expression hardened. See, while I was busy downloading your dirty secrets, I also planted a little surprise in your systems. A dead man switch. If I do not check in with Terran Command every 12 hours, that data I collected, it gets broadcast to every news network. Every government database, every public forum in known space, all of it, every crime, every name, Every transaction. You will not just lose your position, Judge. You will lose everything. Your empire will tear itself apart. That is blackmail, Trell hissed. That is insurance, Raina corrected. I am not stupid. I knew coming here was a death sentence, so I made sure my death would be really, really expensive for you. Kaelor's 4 arms were trembling now. 2 from anger, 2 from fear. If I had to guess.
What do you want?
May, nothing. I am just a soldier who did her job. But them? Raina gestured to the gallery. They want their people back, the ones still alive. They want reparations. They want the trafficking networks dismantled. And they want everyone involved prosecuted. Real prosecution. Not theatrical garbage like this trial. Impossible. The logistics alone would take years. The political ramifications would destabilize the empire. Not my problem. Raina shrugged, making her chains clank. You have 48 hours to start making this right. Release the captives you still have. Arrest the officers involved. Open your records to independent investigation. Do those things and maybe this data stays classified. And if we refuse, then I stop checking in, and we see how well your empire holds together when everyone knows what you have been doing. My money? Not well. The Rim worlds will revolt in days. Your allies will abandon you in weeks. And within months, the Terran Confederacy and about 20 other species will be parked in orbit around your capital, demanding justice with enough firepower to crack planets. It was a bluff. Probably. Maybe. Humans were notoriously difficult to read, and Raina had the best poker face I had ever seen. But Kaelor clearly believed her. So did I. Honestly. The humans had a reputation for being insane enough to follow through on threats that any sane species would consider suicidal. Ambassador Tiven stood again. The Veskin Collective supports Commander Vex's terms: release our people, face justice, or face war. A Quillian delegate stood. The Quillian Commonwealth agrees. More delegates rose. One by one, species that had been victims of the trafficking network declared their support. Within minutes, 32 governments were effectively holding the Kaldrith Empire hostage in their own courtroom. It was beautiful, in a terrifying sort of way. Kaelor looked at Raina with pure hatred. You realize what you have done? The chaos you have unleashed? The Empire maintains order across 200 systems. Without us, there will be anarchy. Maybe, Raina acknowledged. Or maybe you just convinced yourselves you were indispensable so you could justify your atrocities. Either way, we are about to find out. Shaka's ticking, Judge. 47 hours and 53 minutes now. Better start making calls. 7 hours and 53 minutes now. Better start making calls. The High Judge stood abruptly. This trial is adjourned. Commander Vex will be remanded to custody pending further review of evidence. I want those chains off her, Thorne said flatly. No. She is a dangerous criminal. She is the only thing standing between you and a fleet of very angry governments. I suggest you start treating her with appropriate respect. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Kaelor gestured sharply to the guards. Release her. The magnetic restraints deactivated with a heavy clunk. The plasma cuffs flickered out. Raina rubbed her wrists, rolling her shoulders to work out the stiffness. Without the chains, she looked different. Still battered, still wearing a ruined uniform, but somehow more dangerous, like a blade that had been sheathed too long. Ambassador Thorne will escort you to appropriate accommodations, Kaelor said stiffly. Comfortable accommodations, with full diplomatic protections.
How generous,
Raina said dryly. She turned to leave, then paused. Oh, one more thing. About those 308 soldiers I killed when I destroyed Blackgate Station. Turns out only 31 of them were actually innocent. The rest? They were all in on it. Guards for the processing center. Handlers for the captives. I have their service records. I have testimony from survivors. So when you write your version of this story, when you try to paint me as the villain, remember that I did not just attack random people. I attacked slavers. There is a difference. She walked toward the exit, Thorne falling in step beside her. The gallery parted before them, like water around a ship. At the door, she looked back one last time. 47 hours and 49 minutes, Judge. I suggest you use them wisely. And then she was gone. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouting. Judges arguing.
Hey!
Kaelor screaming at his staff to contact the Imperial Council immediately. I just sat there. my recording implants working overtime trying to process everything I had just witnessed. A human had walked into the most powerful court in the Empire in chains, facing execution, and she had walked out free, leaving the judges themselves facing judgment. It was the kind of reversal that would be studied in law schools for centuries, the kind of moment that changed everything. I later learned that the Coldrith Empire did meet Raina's demands, not all of them, not immediately, but enough. 7,412 captives were released in the first week, Kaelor, and 47 other officials were arrested. The trafficking networks were dismantled, at least the obvious ones. There were probably others still operating, but they went deep underground. The Empire itself, it survived, but barely. 3 rim systems declared independence, 5 more threatened to unless major reforms were implemented. The balance of power shifted dramatically. The Terran Confederacy gained significant influence, not through military conquest, but through one soldier who had been willing to bet everything on doing the right thing. Raina Vex received a medal from the Veskin Collective, a commendation from the Quillian Commonwealth, formal thanks from 24 governments. The Terran Defense Corps quietly promoted her to captain, and then immediately assigned her to deep space reconnaissance, which I suspect was their way of saying please stop causing interstellar incidents. As for me, I wrote the most comprehensive court record in galactic history, 20,000 pages documenting every moment of the trial. It won awards. Made me famous. Scribes still buy me drinks and ask me to tell the story. But what I remember most is not the drama, or the politics or the reversals. It is that moment when Raina stood there in chains, facing certain death and chose to fight anyway, not with weapons or ships or armies, with truth, with evidence, with the kind of stubborn refusal to back down that apparently all humans share. There is a saying among the older species, be wary of humans, they are small, they are weak, they die easily, but they do not surrender. Ever, I always thought it was propaganda. Exaggeration meant to make a young species seem more threatening than they actually were. I do not think that anymore. Because I watched a human walk into a trial in chains and walk out with the heads of her enemies on metaphorical spikes, not through violence or treachery but through sheer determination and the audacity to demand justice in a system designed to deny it. So yeah, humans. Terrifying. Impressive. Absolutely do not underestimate them. Trust me on this. I was there. I saw it happen, and I am still not entirely sure how she pulled it off. But I am glad she did. The galaxy is better for it, even if the Coldrith Empire will never admit it.